Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're really getting into a huge moment from the recent 2025 NBA Finals, that incredible series between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Indiana Pacers. OKC, as you know, they grabbed the title in that crazy Game 7 on June 24th. But, hanging over the Pacers the whole time was this storyline about their star point guard, Tyrese Haliburton, and his health. Or really, his lack of full health. You probably saw the headlines, maybe caught him limping, heard the chatter. Today, we want to look past just the obvious stuff, figure out what really went down, how big the impact actually was, and, honestly, why the final news about the injury felt like such a massive relief for everyone.
Exactly. And this deep dive, it's not just about listing what happened. It's about pulling out the key bits from, all the reports, what we saw. We're digging into not just what happened, but why it was so huge for the series outcome, and maybe even more importantly, for Haliburton's own future and where the Pacers go from here.
All right, so if you want the quick but really thorough lowdown on one of the biggest stories out of the 2025 finals, let's dive in. Okay, so let's unpack this. This injury trouble, it wasn't just something that popped up in the finals out of nowhere, was it?
No, you're absolutely right. It wasn't sudden. His injury issues, they actually started becoming pretty noticeable during the Eastern Conference Finals. There was some buzz then. But they really ramped up and became, well, impossible to ignore during the NBA Finals themselves.
Yeah, I remember how vague everything felt. People kept saying leg issue or just soreness. It felt like the Pacers and Coach Carlisle were being pretty guarded about it. Do you think sometimes that vagueness actually creates more worry than just saying, it's a strain, he's playing through it?
It's always a tough balance, right? Especially in the playoffs. Teams want to protect any information they can, keep the opponent guessing. But yeah, you're right. What everyone could see, what was reported, was that Haliburton clearly wasn't himself. Not 100%. And when there's no concrete detail, well, speculation fills that gap pretty quickly.
Okay, so what specifically in his game was hampered? We know he relies so much on his speed and orchestrating everything. What did it actually look like?
It primarily hit his explosiveness, that first step, also his cutting, moving off the ball, and his lateral quickness on defense. For a guy like him, whose whole game flows from that ability to just go, to blow past a defender and make things happen, it wasn't just a small thing. It really changed how they had to play.
Right.
That signature burst he has, creating space, finding those passing angles, it looked way tougher for him, especially, it was really critical. Games 5, 6, and 7.
Okay, let's talk Game 5. Because if there was one moment where it felt like, wow, this is serious, that was it, right? What went down?
No, absolutely. Game 5, June 16th. He seemed to re-aggravate whatever was bothering him right there in the first quarter. You could see it. He was visibly limping sometimes, wasn't moving smoothly at all, and his offense just disappeared. Crucial game, and he ends up with a season low, actually a career playoff low, just 4 points. Shot 0 for 6 from the field. It was really stark.
And didn't Coach Carlisle basically confirm it afterwards, pretty bluntly?
Yep. He did. He just came out and said he's not 100%. It's pretty clear. That's about as direct as you'll get from a coach in that spot. And yeah, that immediately kicked off all the speculation, like, is he done for the series?
But even with all that, looking clearly hurt, he still played in Games 6 and 7. He suited up. What was his reasoning there? What did he say?
He basically just doubled down on his commitment. Told the reporters something like, I'm going to be out there for my guys. This is the finals. Which, tells you a lot about his competitiveness, wanting to be out there, even knowing he wasn't himself.
So the eye test was bad, especially in Game 5. But what about the numbers across the whole series? Do they paint a similar picture, especially in those last few games?
Well, his overall series averages, they look kind of respectable on the surface, about 17 points, 8 assists, 4 rebounds. But yeah, if you dig deeper, his efficiency, that explosiveness we talked about, it really took a hit, especially in the back half of the series. His shooting percentages dropped off noticeably.
Okay, let's run through those key final games again, just the stats. Game 5, June 16th. 4 points, 0 for 6 shooting, 0 for 4 from 3, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. That was the low point, visually and statistically.
Definitely.
Game 6, June 19th. He guts it out, 14 points, 9 assists, Pacers forced Game 7. But the shooting was still shaky, right?
Yeah, inconsistent. More about his will and playmaking than efficient scoring.
And Game 7, June 22nd. The final game, the loss, 14 points, 9 assists again, but poor shooting again. The injury plus that tough Thunder defense, it was clear it was still affecting it.
Right. The lingering effects were obvious.
How big a drop-off was that compared to, peak Haliburton, the guy we saw earlier in the year, earlier in the playoffs?
It was a huge contrast. I mean, regular Haliburton is super efficient, right?
Yeah.
Elite playmaker, makes the game look easy for himself and everyone else.
Mm.
This version, especially late in the finals, he was grinding. You could see him trying to make the same reads, the same passes, but that extra zip, that perfect angle, it just wasn't consistently there. He's battling for everything.
And the Thunder defense, young, long, athletic guys like Dort, Jalen Williams, SGA, how did they take advantage of him being less than 100%?
Oh, they definitely capitalized. I mean, guys like Lou Dort especially, but also the length from Williams and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They were aggressive on him. They knew he probably couldn't blow by them like usual. So they pressured him, forced him into tougher shots, made those drives and passes much harder work. They basically dared the other Pacers to beat them.
Okay, so after Game 5, with the visible limp and everything, there was a lot of fear, right? What was the absolute worst-case scenario people were worried about?
Yeah, the immediate fear, the one that sends shivers down everyone's spine in the basketball world, was a potential Achilles injury, specifically a tear.
Yeah.
And that fear was definitely amplified because we've seen it happen recently to big stars, right? Kevin Durant in the 2019 finals, Klay Thompson. So the thought of that happening to a young cornerstone player like Haliburton, I mean, that was a massive, massive concern. You could almost feel the collective holding of breath around the league.
So what was the good news? The news that let everyone exhale after the finals wrapped up.
Thankfully, the post-finals reports, the initial medical checks, while they confirmed, yes, it was a significant leg injury he was dealing with, they ruled out an Achilles tear, which was just huge. The best possible outcome, given how bad it looked at times.
And what does that actually mean for him, for the Pacers? That sigh of relief, it wasn't just for them, right? It felt league-wide, especially with all the talk about injuries to young stars lately, like Zion or Embiid. What's the significance there?
It's immense. Huge relief, like you said, not just for Indiana, but really for the NBA as a whole. I mean, the exact injury hasn't been fully detailed publicly, but avoiding the Achilles tear, that's the key. It means his recovery timeline should be much, much shorter. We're talking months, not potentially over a year. And crucially, his long-term career outlet remains bright, intact. For a league that really banks on its young stars driving excitement and, the future talent pool, seeing a guy like Haliburton avoid something potentially career-altering, that's a massive win for everybody. It shows you can push through sometimes and still come out okay on the other side.
Okay, so it's undeniable his injury was a huge factor in the Pacers losing. But how did him being limited specifically affect their style, their system?
Well, he's the engine, right?
Okay.
The primary playmaker. So him being diminished, it really changed who they were offensively. The Pacers love to play fast, push the ball, lots of movement, usually orchestrated by him getting them into early offense, catching defenses off balance.
Yeah.
His injury just slowed them down. They had to play more in the half court, and that allowed OKC's defense, which is already really good, to get set and kind of dictate the terms more often.
Yeah.
It took away their preferred flow.
So it wasn't just his points missing, it was the whole rhythm being off.
Exactly. And yeah, his scoring was down, which put way more pressure on Pascal Siakam, Benedict Mathurin, TJ McConnell. They all stepped up at times, had good moments. But they couldn't consistently create those easy looks that Haliburton usually generates night after night. It's just a different burden.
And defensively?
Well, even fully healthy, defense isn't maybe his strongest suit. But with limited mobility, he definitely became more of a target. Guys like SGA, Jalen Williams, they absolutely went at him, tried to force switches, put even more stress on Indiana's team defense.
What about the mental side? I mean, the Pacers fought like crazy, but seeing your leader, your floor general, visibly hurting out there, that has to have some kind of subtle impact, right?
You have to think so. I mean, these guys are pros. They try to block it out. But seeing your main guy clearly playing through pain, knowing he's not at his best, it's tough. They showed incredible heart, no doubt. But it's just an underlying factor, maybe adds a bit of weight. And you got to credit Coach Carlisle, too, trying to balance it all.
Yeah, that seemed like a tough spot for Carlisle.
For sure. Playing him, but managing the minutes, managing expectations. All under the finals microscope.
Yeah.
It looked like they ultimately prioritized his long-term health, which you have to respect. But yeah, a very difficult line to walk in the moment.
When you think about other guys who've played through major injuries in the finals, KD, LeBron comes to mind. What can we learn from those situations that maybe applies here or highlights the pressure Tyrese was under?
That's a really good point because, it's happened before, but each situation is unique. You mentioned Kevin Durant in 2019. He tears his Achilles in Game 5 trying to come back from a calf strain. That just shows the immense pressure players feel to get back out there
Yeah.
and the potentially devastating risk. That was the fear for Haliburton, right?
Exactly.
You got LeBron James. He's basically played through everything in the finals over the years, it feels like. Cramps in 2014, ankle stuff, foot stuff. His ability to still perform at such a high level while clearly dealing with pain is just legendary. That speaks to that sheer will, that determination we saw from Haliburton, too.
Right.
Even guys like Draymond Green, often dealing with nagging things in the finals, maybe not Achilles level, but stuff that affects their game, their defense. It all just highlights the incredible physical toll of getting that deep into the season, into the finals, and the kind of courage it takes for these players to push their bodies right to the edge, sometimes beyond. It's a reminder these aren't just video game characters. They're pushing human limits, often at a real cost.
So, okay, the finals are over. The massive relief of no Achilles tear. What's the immediate plan for Tyrese Haliburton now?
Well, number one is rest, then focused rehab, and definitely a really thorough medical evaluation to get the full picture of that leg injury. The Pacers won't rush anything here.
And timetable-wise, when might we realistically expect him back leading the team?
Because it's not the Achilles, which again is the huge news. The expectation is that his recovery should allow him to be ready, or very close to ready, for the start of next season, which is fantastic for Indiana.
And he's locked in with the Pacers long-term anyway, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That big max extension he signed before this past season kicked in, that secures him as their cornerstone. He's their guy. No question about that.
So for the Pacers as a team, what does making the finals, even with this tough ending, mean for them moving forward?
It absolutely solidifies them as a team on the rise. No fluke. This young core, Haliburton, Mathurin, Siakam, the others, they now have that invaluable finals experience. They know what that stage feels like, the intensity required.
And looking ahead to the offseason, what's likely top of their to-do list?
Well, obviously, making sure Tyrese gets 100% healthy is priority 1, 2, and 3. Beyond that, you'd think they'll look at adding depth, maybe shore up the defensive end a bit more. But the main goal is clearly to build on this run, use this experience, and get right back into contention next year and beyond.
So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway for you, the listener? The 2025 finals were amazing, tons of talent on display. But this Haliburton situation, it adds another layer, doesn't it?
It really does. While OKC gets to celebrate their well-earned title, the Pacers are left reflecting on an incredible season that just fell short. And Tyrese Haliburton's performance, playing through significant pain like that, it's just a powerful, maybe even painful reminder of what these athletes put on the line at the highest level, the sacrifice involved.
Yeah, it really makes you think, doesn't it? When a star player pushes their body like that in the biggest moments, what's the real balance between chasing that immediate championship dream and protecting their long-term health and career? Where's the line? And whose responsibility is it to draw it? Definitely something to chew on. All right, that's our deep dive for today. Hopefully you feel like you've got a much clearer picture now, maybe some new ways to think about one of the defining stories from the 2025 finals. Thanks so much for joining us.